Jungkook freezes mid-recording when he hears a haunting backing vocal he never approved. Taehyung's secret voice threatens to unravel everything. Stop the track. What the hell was that? Jungkook's voice sliced through the recording booth like a jagged blade, sharp with confusion and disbelief. The music, once flowing with meticulous precision, screeched to a halt. Silence filled the control room, a silence thick with tension and the faint hum of suspended disbelief. He stood motionless, headphones slightly askew, his chest rising and falling in heavy breaths as if he'd just run a marathon, but he hadn't. He was recording a ballad, his comeback single, a project he had curated, written, and controlled down to the breath between every line. Nothing was supposed to surprise him in this process, but he had just heard Taehyung's voice, faint, hidden beneath the second chorus like a ghost whispering through layers of melody. It had drifted into Jungkook's ears with a familiarity that felt both soothing and intrusive. It wasn't an accident. That wasn't an old demo. That harmony, low, raw, intimate, wasn't part of any approved file. Jungkook knew every vocal layer recorded for this track. Every breath, every falsetto, every grain of reverb. Taehyung's voice wasn't supposed to be there. Yoongi, seated behind the mixing board with an unreadable expression, slowly pulled his hoodie over his head as if bracing himself for impact. "It's just backing vocals," Yoongi muttered, eyes still locked on the monitor as if it could protect him. "It blends well. Adds depth." "Depth?" Jungkook's voice cracked, caught somewhere between a scoff and a gasp. Depth from someone who walked out on the project 2 months ago without a single explanation? Yoongi didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence in the room was already screaming. Jungkook yanked off the headphones and stormed into the control room. The energy he brought with him was electric, volatile, buzzing with betrayal and disbelief. The overhead lights caught the slight tremble in his hands as he pointed at the screen. "Tell me right now, Yoongi, did you put that in there?" Yoongi shifted in his seat, his jaw clenched so tightly it looked like it might snap. For a moment, he looked as if he might lie. But then he exhaled, slow, controlled, and utterly resigned. "No," he said. "Taehyung sent it himself." Jungkook's stomach dropped. It felt like someone had opened the floor beneath him and he was plummeting without control. He backed away slightly, as if the mere idea of Taehyung's voice contaminating his song physically repulsed him. "When?" His voice was quieter now, raw. "When did he send it?" Yoongi's hesitation said everything. 3 days ago. 3 days ago. That was the day Jungkook had finished writing the bridge, the most personal part of the track, written in a haze of insomnia and old memories. The lyrics spoke of miscommunication, of watching something precious die slowly between two people too proud to speak. And now Taehyung had slipped his voice under those very words, almost like a reply. Was this his way of apologizing? Jungkook whispered almost to himself. Yoongi looked down, guilt shadowing his face. "Maybe. I don't know." He didn't write anything, just sent the stems and said, "Use them if they still mean something." The room fell into a long silence, the kind that presses against your eardrums. Jungkook stared at the monitor where Taehyung's vocal waveform blinked like a heartbeat. A part of him wanted to rip the entire track apart. Another part, quieter, more dangerous, wanted to hit play again. He had not seen or spoken to Taehyung since the day their creative differences exploded into a public fallout. Taehyung had stormed out of their studio in Paris after accusing Jungkook of being obsessed with control. Jungkook had fired back, coldly stating that professionalism was non-negotiable. The press had picked up the tension, fans speculated, and what was supposed to be a groundbreaking joint project had crumbled into ash. Yet, here was his voice. Not in anger, not in protest, but layered gently beneath Jungkook's most intimate lyrics, like a hand reaching through time. "Play it again," Jungkook said, voice low. Yoongi hesitated. "Are you sure?" "I need to hear it clearly." The room dimmed as the track restarted. The chorus bloomed, and just beneath the swell, Taehyung's voice slipped in. It was husky, vulnerable, sung like a secret. He wasn't overpowering the melody, he was completing it. Jungkook closed his eyes. And for a moment, he wasn't in Seoul. He was in London, standing under a gray sky, watching Taehyung scribble lyrics into a leather notebook with the kind of intensity that made everything else fade, back when they shared laughter instead of silence, trust instead of headlines. The song ended. Jungkook didn't open his eyes. "Don't delete it," he said quietly. "But don't use it either." Yoongi's brows furrowed. "Then what do you want to do with it?" Jungkook finally looked at him, his eyes unreadable. "I need to see him." A new kind of silence fell, this time filled with the promise of unresolved wars and the ghosts of unspoken truths. Yoongi nodded slowly. "He's in Tokyo. He left 2 days ago." Of course he did. Always one step ahead, even in retreat. Jungkook ran a hand through his hair, torn between rage and longing. The past clawed its way through every lyric, every harmony, refusing to be buried. Taehyung didn't just leave a voice behind, he left a challenge, and Jungkook couldn't ignore it anymore. The door slammed open before Jungkook could knock. "I knew you'd come," Taehyung said flatly, his voice carrying the weight of too many unsent messages. He was already standing at the edge of the hotel suite's floor-to-ceiling window, half shadowed by the pale blue skyline of Tokyo, arms crossed, as if he had rehearsed this exact moment in his head too many times. Jungkook didn't speak. Not at first. He shut the door behind him with a calmness that didn't match the storm brewing beneath his skin. His jaw clenched. His hands were fists in his hoodie pocket. His breath was steady but heavy, like each inhale was an effort not to explode. "You put your voice in my song." Taehyung tilted his head, as if the accusation was merely a passing breeze. "Our song," he corrected. "No," Jungkook's voice hardened. "Not after what you did. Not after you left without a single 5 times kinging word. You don't get to—" "I didn't leave," Taehyung cut him off, his voice low, deliberate, almost dangerous. "You pushed me out." There was a beat of silence. Then Jungkook took a step forward. "I asked for focus, not obedience. You demanded silence. I needed commitment." "I gave everything," Taehyung snapped, spinning away from the window, his face now fully visible, eyes dark with emotion, his lips tight, cheeks flushed with something between pain and fury. "And when I broke down in that Paris studio, when I told you I couldn't sing that bridge because it felt like I was bleeding into the mic, what did you do?" Jungkook swallowed hard. The memory slammed into him like a wave. Taehyung, tears streaking down his face, walking out in the middle of a take. Jungkook, stone-faced, telling the team to cut for the day without even following him. "You shut down," Taehyung continued. "You froze, like you always do when something gets too human. And you call that professionalism." Jungkook's voice dropped. "And you call emotional outbursts collaboration?" Taehyung stepped forward until they were nearly chest to chest. "I call it honesty." Their silence this time wasn't hollow. It was electric. The air between them felt alive, buzzing with too much history, too many unsaid things, and now one song that neither of them could claim as theirs alone. Taehyung turned away first. He reached for a small Bluetooth speaker on the table, clicked a button, and music began playing. It was the bridge, the raw file, the harmony they both wrote but never recorded together. This time, Taehyung's voice wasn't buried beneath layers. It was exposed. Fragile, honest. Jungkook didn't move. "I recorded it at 3 a.m., Taehyung said quietly. "I hadn't slept. I was jet-lagged and pissed off. But when I heard the final demo, I don't know. Something inside me broke." His voice cracked slightly, but he didn't turn around. "You wrote that part like it was your goodbye," he continued. "But I sang it like I wasn't ready to let go." Jungkook looked at him now not as a bandmate, not as a collaborator, but as the person who once sat beside him on rooftops whispering dreams under the stars. And for the first time in weeks, his voice softened. "Why didn't you call me instead?" Taehyung laughed, bitter and broken. "Because you wouldn't have picked up." Jungkook closed his eyes. He couldn't deny it. He had ignored Taehyung's missed calls, swiped away unread messages, convinced himself that silence was safer than confrontation. Taehyung turned to face him again. "I didn't put my voice in there to sabotage you. I put it there because I knew if I didn't, you'd erase everything we built together like it never mattered." Jungkook stared at him, searching for a trace of resentment, but there wasn't any. Just exhaustion, regret, a quiet sort of defiance. "I didn't delete it," he said. Taehyung's eyebrows lifted slightly. "Why not?" "Because, for the first time," Jungkook said slowly, "the song didn't feel finished without it." Taehyung didn't respond immediately. He looked out the window again, but this time, his shoulders weren't so tense. "I don't want to be background vocals in your life, Jungkook," he said, his voice barely audible. I never wanted you to be. Their eyes met. Something shifted. A beat passed, and then Jungkook pulled his phone from his pocket and tapped something. The speaker clicked. A new version of the track played the final master. This time, Taehyung's vocals weren't in the background. They were right there, side by side, equal. Taehyung stared at him. You mixed me into the lead? I didn't mix you, Jungkook said, staring straight at him. I restored you. The music faded into silence. Neither moved, neither blinked, but something between them had changed. Subtly, permanently. Jungkook walked toward the door, pausing as his hand reached the handle. We're both performing at Music Bank next week, he said without turning around. Taehyung looked up sharply. I know, he said. Jungkook's voice was lower now. If you still remember the choreography, maybe show up. And then he walked out, leaving behind a room filled with music, forgiveness, and the ghosts of a song that finally spoke the truth. Tokyo's skyline glittered behind Taehyung, like a promise waiting to be kept. And for the first time in a long time, he smiled. The rehearsal room was a sterile white box, drenched in blinding fluorescent light, the kind that stripped everything of warmth. A mirrored wall stretched across one side, reflecting the tension like an echo chamber. Speakers hummed faintly, waiting. The countdown for their joint rehearsal at Music Bank had officially begun. Jungkook arrived first, dressed in all black oversized hoodie, sweatpants, cap pulled low. He looked like he was preparing for battle. His jaw was tense. His hands stayed deep in his pockets. He didn't need warm-ups. His body remembered every move like muscle memory etched in defiance. But today wasn't about choreography. Today was about the unspoken war playing out between footsteps and glances. Taehyung entered 12 minutes late. 12 deliberate minutes. He strolled in with a smirk on his lips, iced coffee in one hand, dark green bomber jacket barely clinging to his shoulders. No apology, no urgency. Just the calm arrogance of someone who knew exactly how much power his presence carried and how late was just late enough to sting. Jungkook didn't turn to look at him. Not at first. Still allergic to clocks, I see, Jungkook said without lifting his gaze from the mirror. Taehyung dropped the coffee onto the piano bench with a clink and began stretching, his back to Jungkook. Still obsessed with time as a substitute for control, I see. The air snapped. Even the sound tech flinched. Jungkook spun around. Are you serious right now? We've got 36 hours until broadcast and you're playing word games? Taehyung finally looked at him straight in the eye. You invited me. Don't act surprised, I came as myself. You came as a headline. Taehyung chuckled coldly. Don't flatter yourself. The headlines have always been about you. The tension, already razor sharp, now drew blood. The rehearsal started anyway. The music played, and both of them moved bodies fluid, in sync, like they had been choreographed in another lifetime. But something was off. It wasn't in the steps. It was in the eyes. They didn't look at each other. Not even once. During the second run-through, it happened. Taehyung turned slightly off-beat during a pivot and bumped into Jungkook's shoulder. It wasn't a hard bump, but it was enough. Jungkook stopped. Music halted. The room froze. What's your problem? Jungkook barked. Taehyung blinked. Excuse me. You're not even trying, Taehyung scoffed. I missed one count. You missed everything. Jungkook stepped forward, frustration spilling from every syllable. You walked into this rehearsal late, smug, acting like you're doing everyone a favor. I am doing you a favor, Taehyung snapped. Silence. Jungkook's face went pale, then red, then stone. What did you just say? I said, Taehyung continued, slower now, meaner. You begged Yoongi to bring me back into this. You knew the press would tear you apart if you debuted this solo. You needed the redemption arc, and I'm your plot twist. Jungkook's fists clenched. You think I asked for this because of the media? Didn't you? I asked because I couldn't sing that bridge without hearing you in it, Jungkook shouted, his voice cracking. I asked because it sounded wrong without you. Not because of press, not because of optics. Because for once, I stopped pretending I was okay cutting you out. Taehyung was breathing hard now. His voice dropped, low and guttural. Then stop pretending right now. What do you actually want from me, Jungkook? An apology? A duet? A confession? Or just someone to blame when this performance falls apart? Jungkook stared at him, pupils trembling. I want you to stop acting like you're the only one who got hurt. And just like that, everything cracked. Taehyung's breath hitched. and for a moment, the mask slipped. "I wasn't sleeping," Taehyung whispered. "I was drinking myself numb in Tokyo, alone, while fans spammed my DMs asking if I had betrayed BTS. I watched the press twist everything, calling me unprofessional, jealous, unstable. And you? You just kept going. Like nothing happened." "You think I kept going?" Jungkook laughed, but there was no joy in it. "I buried myself in production because I couldn't face what we broke. I spent nights in the studio, recording the same verse, over and over, just to avoid thinking about why you left." They stood in the center of the room, two storm fronts colliding. Neither moved. Finally, Taehyung exhaled. "Then maybe we're both liars." Jungkook didn't argue. The rehearsal ended early. Neither of them said goodbye. But as Taehyung left the room, he paused near the door and said without turning around, "We have one more day to fix this. Don't waste it." Jungkook didn't respond. But as soon as Taehyung disappeared, Jungkook picked up the mic and played the instrumental version of the track. He began singing not for the show, not for the press, but for the man who had just walked away again. And his voice, raw and breaking, filled the empty room with something too honest to erase. The performance wasn't ready, but maybe, just maybe, they were. "You weren't supposed to be here." Taehyung's voice was ice, but his hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his earpiece backstage. His eyes flicked up toward the mirror in the dressing room, meeting Jungkook's through the reflection. "I could say the same," Jungkook replied, tone sharp, eyes unreadable under the heavy shadows of the makeup lights. He pulled on his performance jacket slowly, like armor. "You weren't on the initial guest list. I was invited this morning." "By who?" Taehyung turned around. "Does it matter?" They stared at each other in silence, tension rising like static in the air. Makeup artists had paused. Stylists had walked out discreetly, sensing that even a whisper could set this room ablaze. Jungkook broke the silence first, voice low. "They said the press rehearsal would be closed. They changed it last minute. Media's already in the pit. Cameras, mics, you name it. Of course." The higher-ups were gambling again, hoping to squeeze every drop of drama from their reunion, waiting to see whether the performance would be a disaster or a redemption arc. Either way, it would trend. Either way, it would sell. The sound coordinator knocked lightly on the door. 3 minutes, guys. Mike, check on stage." Neither moved. "Are you going to throw another curveball?" Jungkook asked suddenly. "Another surprise harmony? A speech? A stunt?" Taehyung's lips curved into a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Depends. Are you still pretending this is just business?" Jungkook clenched his jaw, then turned, without another word. On stage, the lights were blinding. The pre-show crowd was louder than usual. For a closed rehearsal, there were influencers, insiders, and at least 3 tabloid mics disguised as lifestyle vloggers. Jungkook recognized them instantly. He had been trained to. Every step, every blink, every breath would be dissected within minutes. They stood on opposite ends of the stage as the intro music started. The beat dropped. The screen behind them lit up with their names, once part of the same brand, now blinking awkwardly like a mismatched pair. The choreography began. It was clean, almost perfect, but there was no warmth. Every synchronized movement was mechanical. Every step screamed of practice, not passion. Then, as they reached the second chorus, it happened. A reporter's voice rang out in the middle of the instrumental break. Loud, intentionally unmuted. "Taehyung, is it true you were supposed to release this song solo before Jungkook took it for his album?" The room froze. Even the music dropped half a beat. Jungkook stiffened mid-turn. Taehyung's entire body went rigid. Another voice joined. "Is that why you added your vocals after the production wrapped? Was it an act of protest? Are you two fighting over songwriting credits? Why did the label remove your name from the official announcement? Did you leak your vocals out of spite?" Jungkook's mic was still live. He could hear his own shallow breathing through the monitor. This wasn't just tension anymore. This was sabotage. Someone had planted this story, someone with access, someone with an agenda. Taehyung took a step forward, but instead of walking off stage or giving a denial, he did something no one expected. He walked straight to Jungkook. For a split second, Jungkook's eyes widened in confusion, but he didn't move. Taehyung stopped just a foot away, reached up slowly, and grabbed Jungkook's collar mic, not to rip it off, but to tilt it toward himself. Then he leaned in, his voice pouring into the silence with deadly clarity. "You want truth?" His voice echoed across the stadium, carried through every speaker, into every recording device. This song was never mine. It was always ours. From the first demo in Berlin to the night we stayed up till 4 a.m. arguing about the bridge, we both gave it life. But yeah, when I walked away, I thought I'd lost the right to be part of it. Jungkook's eyes were locked on him, wide, unblinking, breathing through parted lips. Taehyung's voice cracked. So when I heard what he did with it, how he changed the second verse, how he kept my guitar riff even after I was gone, I realized he hadn't erased me. He'd saved pieces of me. The reporters were silent now, cameras still rolling, but no one dared interrupt. "I didn't sneak into this song to sabotage it," Taehyung continued. "I came back because it still meant something to me. Because he still meant something to me." There was a collective inhale from the audience pit. Jungkook didn't move. Taehyung's hand dropped from the mic. His expression had shifted less combative, more raw, as if the admission had cost him something. Then Jungkook did something even more shocking. He turned to the sound crew and gestured toward the booth. "Play the unreleased version," he said. Heads turned. Staff looked confused. "The version with both of us leading," he clarified. "Full vocal layer, no edits." There was hesitation, then the nod. The speakers shifted. A different mix of the track rolled in, one that no one had heard. It wasn't the stripped-down studio version. It was richer, more layered. Jungkook's voice and Taehyung's voice in full harmony. No one buried, no one behind. Just two different timbres weaving into something painful and stunning. They stood there as it played. Not dancing, not singing, just listening. Reporters froze. Phones dropped. The narrative collapsed under its own weight. When the song ended, Taehyung turned to him. "You didn't have to do that." Jungkook looked down at the mic still clipped to his collar. "Yes, I did." Backstage, chaos had already begun. Staff whispering, managers scrambling, PR reps typing damage control into group chats. But on stage, neither Jungkook nor Taehyung moved. Finally, Jungkook said quietly, "I'm not performing this song without you tomorrow." Taehyung tilted his head. "Even if it ruins your clean image?" Jungkook's gaze locked with his. "It wasn't clean to begin with." And just like that, they walked off stage, side by side. The sound of applause still echoed faintly through the corridors of the broadcast building. But Jungkook and Taehyung were no longer on stage. They stood in the narrow hallway behind the main set, hidden from view but not from consequence. Taehyung leaned against the wall, sweat clinging to his neck. His performance outfit wrinkled from the emotional weight of what had just happened. Jungkook paced, his earpiece still dangling from one side, face flushed not from exertion but from the chaos they had just detonated. "You know they're going to spin this as a lover's drama, right?" Taehyung said dryly. Jungkook stopped mid-step and turned. "I don't care." Taehyung laughed without humor. "You do. You always care. You've built your career around controlling the narrative. And you've built yours around setting it on fire." The word stung more than either would admit. A staff member ran past them, not even looking their way. Somewhere beyond the walls, hashtags were already trending, phones buzzing with footage from the rehearsal. Jungkook x Taehyung. Secret project. Betrayal or redemption? A million headlines, none of them accurate. Taehyung stared at Jungkook, his voice lower now. "Do you regret playing the unreleased version?" Jungkook leaned against the opposite wall and looked at him. "No, but I regret not doing it sooner." A beat passed between them. Not tension this time, just the space where truth had finally carved itself out. Suddenly, a voice cut in over the building's internal speaker system. A faint buzz of a hot mic that someone forgot to mute. It was a private conversation being broadcast unintentionally into multiple backstage monitors. You should have seen their faces. Jungkook didn't know the leak came from someone inside the team. Taehyung thinks he's reclaiming the spotlight, but he's playing exactly into the rollout plan. Another voice answered, muffled but clear enough. "This is going better than we thought. Fan engagement is through the roof. Let the drama run another 2 days. Drop the collab performance announcement Monday. By then, we'll have doubled pre-sales." Jungkook and Taehyung froze. The hallway was now a different kind of silent. They looked at each other. Neither needed to say it. Someone had manipulated them both. Someone with power. Taehyung stepped away from the wall slowly, his face darkening with something colder than anger. They used us. Jungkook's hands curled into fists. They manufactured the feud and milked the reconciliation. Taehyung's eyes narrowed. Who's on our team that we can't trust? Jungkook didn't answer. He was already dialing Yoongi. It rang twice. Yoongi, did you know? Jungkook asked the second the call connected. There was silence on the other end. Then, know what? The hot mic just played something. Someone on the internal team leaked the original recording drama. They planned this whole mess to boost numbers. Yoongi's breath caught. That wasn't me, but I've had suspicions for weeks. Taehyung leaned in closer to listen, voice like acid. So, you just let it happen? I tried to shut it down, Yoongi replied. But the label's been pushing a narrative arc for the comeback since day one. They think they're running a reality show. Jungkook's voice cracked. So the rumors, the edited press leaks, even the initial cancellation, all orchestrated, Yoongi confirmed. They were banking on emotional fatigue, not actual healing. You two were their season finale. Taehyung took the phone from Jungkook and spoke directly. How do we burn this to the ground without torching the fans? There was a long pause. Then Yoongi sighed. You don't. But you can hijack it. You have one shot. Go live. Tonight. Speak first. Be louder than their version. Jungkook and Taehyung exchanged a glance. Then Jungkook said, no management, no filters. Just us. Yoongi replied, you've got 20 minutes before they realize the mic slip and start locking you out. They ran. They bolted down the corridor, past interns, past stage managers screaming into headsets. They dodged a producer yelling about broadcast delays and slipped into a small green room that had Wi-Fi, a locked door, and nothing else. Taehyung pulled out his phone. Jungkook grabbed a chair and dragged it in front of the blank wall. Live or die on truth, Taehyung said as he opened the app. Jungkook nodded. The live stream went up. Within 30 seconds, over 700,000 viewers joined. The number doubled in another minute. Comments exploded. Are you guys okay? Was that real on stage? Jungkook and Taehyung lived together? Taehyung looked straight into the camera. His expression was calm, but the fury in his voice was unmistakable. What you've been watching isn't fiction, but it wasn't our script. Jungkook continued. We found out someone in our internal team leaked voice stems, edited the rollout, and fed the media false narratives to boost engagement. Taehyung added, and the worst part? They almost convinced us to hate each other. Jungkook leaned forward. But we're not letting them use our silence anymore. The chat was a flood. What? Who did this? Expose them! Taehyung gave the camera a bitter smile. We won't name names yet. Not because we're protecting anyone, but because we need proof. What we will say is this song, this performance, this reunion, it's real. And it's ours. Jungkook's voice dropped to a whisper. And if that costs us everything, so be it. They ended the live stream after 8 minutes. The fallout began 30 seconds later. An anonymous whistleblower sent screenshots to journalists showing conversations between label staff planning the leak weeks prior. A timeline surfaced. ARMY fans began cross-referencing tweets and media releases. Hashtags flipped from celebratory to furious. Jungkook's name trended alongside exploitation, Leakgate, and Protect Taehyung. That night, the label released a weak statement denying knowledge. It was torn apart within the hour. At 3:07 a.m., Taehyung texted Jungkook 2 words, "They're scared." At 3:09 a.m., Jungkook replied, "Good. Let's give them a reason to be." It arrived on Taehyung's personal phone at 3:47 a.m. A single message. No sender ID. No emojis. Just text. You went off script. Now there are consequences. He read it twice. The first time, he thought it was a troll. The second time, he felt the temperature drop in his chest. He didn't reply. He didn't delete it either. By 3:51 a.m., he was knocking on Jungkook's hotel room door, hard. Jungkook answered shirtless, barely awake, voice groggy. "Hyung, it's..." He stopped mid-sentence when he saw Taehyung's face. Without a word, Taehyung handed him the phone. Jungkook read the message, then looked up slowly. His jaw tightened. "We're not safe anymore, are we?" Taehyung said, almost too quietly. Jungkook didn't answer. The next morning, the label called for an emergency meeting. It wasn't in a conference room. It was in a private security building 3 blocks from their main HQ. Armed guards at the gate. No phones allowed past the second door. The elevator scanned their thumbprints. Inside, everything was glass and silence. Yoongi was already there, seated across from the head of artist development and the director of media operations. The air reeked of cologne, ego, and fear. "You're blowing this out of proportion," the director said, adjusting his tie like it was choking him. Jungkook sat down slowly, his hands laced tightly together. "You orchestrated a character assassination campaign against us, and now we're getting death threats. Do you think we're being dramatic?" "We didn't send that message," the woman from PR cut in sharply. "We may have made creative decisions regarding the comeback rollout, but threatening artists? That's beyond—" Taehyung interrupted, calm but lethal. "Don't try to draw moral lines in a strategy you designed around betrayal." Everyone went silent. Yoongi spoke next. "We're not asking. We're telling you. Find out who sent the message. Intern, contractor, manager, we don't care. Either you clean house or we clean it for you." There was a pause. The exec shifted in his seat, lips pressed thin. "We'll investigate," he finally said. "But in the meantime, we expect you to keep rehearsing. This stage is the most anticipated act of the year." Jungkook leaned forward. "Let me be clear. There won't be a performance until you issue a statement admitting to the narrative manipulation." The director's eyes narrowed. "You want us to apologize publicly?" Taehyung tilted his head. "No, we want you to confess." Another silence. "This one more dangerous. You think you can leverage the fan base against us?" the executive said. "But you forget who owns the stage." Jungkook's voice was razor thin, cutting clean. "The stage doesn't matter if the artist walks off it." Yoongi stood. "This meeting is over." That afternoon, Taehyung and Jungkook left the building in silence. Their black vans took separate routes, trailed by unmarked security cars neither of them had requested. That evening, Taehyung received another message. This time, it was a photo, an old one, a photo no one was supposed to have. From 3 years ago, him and Jungkook, blurry and close, sharing headphones on a rooftop in Berlin. Jungkook's head was tilted toward him. Taehyung's eyes were closed, their laughter frozen in motion. The timestamp was accurate. The angle wasn't. It had been taken without their knowledge. Attached was another message. "Everything leaks, even trust." Taehyung stared at it for a long time, his thumb hovering over the screen. Then he called Jungkook. Jungkook didn't ask what happened. He just said, "Come over." When Taehyung arrived, Jungkook already had the curtains drawn and the stereo playing low jazz to block sound. He poured them both a drink, not alcohol, just warm barley tea, a comfort they hadn't shared since the Wings tour. Taehyung showed him the phone. Jungkook stared at the photo for a long time. Then he whispered, "I remember that day. We just finished recording for Stigma. You said you hated the version you gave and wanted to re-record it at sunrise." Taehyung chuckled softly. "You sat with me until 5 a.m. and then fell asleep during my vocal take." "I didn't fall asleep," Jungkook smirked. "I was meditating." Their laughter was short-lived. Jungkook's voice grew darker. "Someone's trying to warn us or blackmail us." "Both," Taehyung said. "But they don't understand something." "What?" "We don't scare like we used to." That night, they sent one message out. From both their accounts. No stylists, no managers, just them. A photo blurry, rooftop, headphones, timestamp exposed, captioned only with, "If you're going to leak it, make sure it's worth it." The fandom exploded. Instead of scandal, there was solidarity. The hashtags turned from anger to protection, from confusion to clarity, from fear to fire. Number "We stand with taekook." Number "You will not erase them." Number "Leaked but loved." The executive scrambled. PR teams begged for silence, but the message was already out. Whatever happened next, the artists would speak first. At 2:31 a.m., Yoongi sent one final message to their group chat. "Check your email. Found something." Attached was a folder. Label "Internal Memos." Time-stamped. One subject line stood out in red. "If Taehyung refuses, isolate him. Jungkook will follow if he feels cornered." Taehyung stared at it for a long time. Then he closed the laptop. "I'm not cornered anymore," he whispered. Jungkook didn't say anything. He just reached for the guitar in the corner of the room, sat down, and started strumming the chords of the new bridge they never finished. And Taehyung, without a word, began to sing. It was supposed to be their redemption stage, the final performance, all eyes on them. But 12 hours before the show, the headlines shifted again. A leaked anonymous report circulated by a shadow account with verified internal contacts claimed that Taehyung had threatened legal action against the label unless Jungkook added him back into the performance lineup. The report included blurry email screenshots, manipulated timestamps, out-of-context voice memos, and worst of all, an attached audio clip where a voice sounding almost like Taehyung said, "He'll cave if you isolate him. That's what I've done before." By 10 a.m., number Taehyung blackmail was trending. By 10:15, calls were already being made to remove him from the lineup entirely. Inside the artist's dressing room, Taehyung sat silently, phone face down, eyes staring at the wall. Jungkook paced like a lion in a cage, his fists clenched, lips pressed so tight they'd gone white. "Say something," he finally snapped. "You're just going to sit there while they crucify you?" Taehyung didn't flinch. "They're going to believe whatever makes them feel something. Anger's easier than understanding." "Don't give me that philosophical crap," Jungkook growled. "Fight back. Release the real audio. Clear your name." Taehyung's voice was bitter. "You think it's that simple? It is when you're innocent." Taehyung stood now, slow, steady, the kind of calm that cracked glass. Innocent doesn't trend, and silence doesn't protect. Jungkook grabbed the chair and shoved it backward with a loud screech. "Then do something. Because if they pull you from the stage," Taehyung cut him off. "They won't." "How can you be so sure?" "Because you're going to make sure they don't." Jungkook blinked. "What are you talking about?" Taehyung reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a flash drive. "This," he said, "has the full, unedited voice log from 3 months ago. Everything they spliced was pulled from this." Jungkook took it, fingers shaking. "Why didn't you release it earlier?" Taehyung's eyes darkened. "Because the original includes things I said about you that I didn't want out." Jungkook stared at him. Taehyung's voice was quieter now. "It's not pretty. I was angry. Hurt. I said you were manipulative, that your perfectionism made collaboration feel like drowning, that you'd rather bury the truth than admit you felt something." The silence between them was loud. Jungkook swallowed. "Were you wrong?" "No," Taehyung answered. "But I was cruel." They both stood there, two men stripped of all performance, all pretense. The air smelled like nerves, sweat, and something else, truth. Jungkook stepped back. "You still want me to release it?" Taehyung nodded. "It's the only way." Jungkook turned toward the laptop, inserted the flash drive, opened the file, listened. He didn't flinch as his own name was dissected with surgical bitterness. He didn't pause when Taehyung said things that made his stomach twist. Because underneath it all, there was honesty. Raw, ugly, desperate honesty. When the clip ended, Jungkook whispered, "You trusted me with this?" Taehyung shrugged. "You're the only one I don't regret hating." Jungkook looked at him, really looked, and then without another word, he hit upload. Within 15 minutes, the internet flipped. The full recording exposed how the leaked version had been chopped, distorted, and layered out of context. Fans began analyzing the audio, matching waveforms. The metadata confirmed the timeline. And then a second revelation dropped. Yoongi posted the internal memo screenshots with the caption, "Funny how they wanted to destroy the one person who actually told the truth." By noon, the label issued a shaky press statement saying they'd opened an internal investigation. By 2 p.m., Taehyung's lawyer sent a public cease and desist to the outlet that had first circulated the blackmail claim. And by 3:30, when the final soundcheck was about to begin, Taehyung stood center stage, still standing, still singing. Jungkook joined him 30 seconds later. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The crew, watching from the wings, whispered in awe at how their voices blended seamless, fierce, and trembling with something deeper than just harmony. Pain, resilience, vindication. Backstage, as the stage manager prepped for curtain call, a staffer ran in breathless. "You both need to see this." He held up a phone. It was a newly leaked document, this time from the CEO's office. Subject line: "If the narrative survives the performance, bury the bridge mix." Attached was a version of the song without Taehyung's voice. Already mastered. Already prepped for release. Taehyung stared at it. Jungkook reached into his in-ear monitor, pulled it out, and said calmly, "Then we changed the set list." The manager stammered. "But that's not—" "Do it," Taehyung said. 30 minutes later, the lights went down. The stage opened, and instead of the expected hit track, the screen behind them lit up with one word in bold white: unedited. The crowd went wild. Their voices rose. Live. No backing vocals. No filters. No compromise. The version of the song no one was meant to hear. The bridge left in. Uncut. Taehyung's voice exposed. Trembling, but proud. When the final note hit, they didn't bow. They stood tall, shoulder to shoulder. And somewhere in the back of the venue, a flash drive burned quietly in someone's pocket. One final audio file that neither of them knew existed yet. A voice, a name, and a confession that would shake the next episode to its core. The thunder of the crowd hadn't even faded when Jungkook spotted Yoongi's expression from the wings. Stone cold, unmoving, eyes locked on the flash drive in his palm like it was radiating poison. They met backstage in the chaos of post-performance staff members, buzzing, cameras flashing, makeup retouches flying in from every direction. But Yoongi didn't speak a word. He just handed Jungkook the flash drive. "Don't plug it in here," Yoongi muttered. "Go somewhere private." Jungkook nodded, his heart already racing. 30 minutes later, in the safety of his hotel room, Jungkook sat in front of his laptop. Taehyung was there too, silent, seated on the edge of the bed, tension coiled in his shoulders. They didn't speak as the flash drive mounted. One file, no title, just a timestamp. Jungkook clicked it. The audio opened with static. A door creaked, shuffling. Then, a voice, deep, confident, familiar. "You want to break them? It's not that hard. You just have to make them break each other." Taehyung's eyes widened, recognition hitting him like a slap. The voice belonged to June, Namjoon, leader, brother, mentor, betrayer. Jungkook's fingers tightened around the mouse, but he didn't stop the recording. If Taehyung feels isolated, he'll lash out. If Jungkook feels cornered, he'll shut down. You exploit the space between them, the silence they both mistake for safety. Feed the press. Edit a few files. Leak one email. They'll unravel themselves. Taehyung's breath was sharp now, like glass in his throat. No, that he wouldn't. But the voice continued. Calm. Calculated. The label's already desperate. They want results. I'm just giving them a path. This isn't personal. It's preservation. Jungkook turned to Taehyung, his voice like gravel. He said it wasn't personal. Taehyung stood up slowly. That's the most personal thing he could have done. The air between them grew thick with something too heavy to describe. Hurt, yes. Rage, absolutely. But deeper still, there was the kind of betrayal that cracks the bones, not just the skin. They had trusted Namjoon through everything. Debut, touring, scandals, sleepless nights, and rooftop confessions. He was the one who held them together when they wanted to fall apart. And now he was the one who had orchestrated their fracture. Jungkook closed the laptop. He wanted us to destroy each other. Taehyung's voice was shaking now. And he almost got it. Silence. Then, a knock on the door. Slow, deliberate. Jungkook walked over, checked the peephole. It was him. Namjoon, dressed in black. No staff. No smile. Jungkook opened the door without a word. Namjoon stepped inside. And for the first time since the betrayal was revealed, he looked directly at them. No smugness, no defense, just exhaustion. I figured you'd listen to it by now. Taehyung's voice came out sharp. You planned everything. Namjoon's reply was a whisper. I protected everything. Jungkook barked a laugh, but there was no humor in it. By burning it down from the inside? Namjoon walked further in, slowly. You don't know what I was dealing with. The execs were going to cut you both loose, say you violated contract terms, freeze your royalties. I bought you time. By staging a war. Taehyung snapped. You were already at war, Namjoon said quietly. I just shifted the battlefield. Jungkook stepped forward, eyes blazing. You took my silence and his anger and weaponized them. You didn't protect us. You played God. Namjoon didn't argue. He just sat down, shoulders sinking like the weight of every decision was catching up to him all at once. You weren't supposed to find out. Not like this, he said. But when I saw you perform together tonight, I realized I couldn't control the ending. And maybe I shouldn't. Taehyung stared at him. Why now? Namjoon looked up, and his voice cracked finally. Because watching you two on that stage reminded me what it used to feel like, when it was real. Before it all turned into negotiations and edits and fear. Jungkook swallowed hard, his throat burning. You broke something in us, Hyung. Namjoon nodded. I know. Silence. Stretched. Long. Painful. Then Taehyung spoke, low and bitter. What do you want from us? Namjoon looked between them, and for the first time in years, there was no strategy in his eyes. Just sadness. I want you to forgive each other more than you hate me. Neither answered. He stood, walked to the door, paused, and without turning around said, whatever you decide, I'll take the hit. I deserve it. The door closed behind him with the softest click. Jungkook stood still. Taehyung sat back down. Neither spoke, because forgiveness wasn't simple, and love wasn't blind. It remembered every crack, every silence, every lie. There were more cameras than usual. Too many. Even before Jungkook and Taehyung stepped out of the black van into the press lobby, they could feel the temperature of the room had changed. Not physically, but atmospherically. Heavier, more charged. Like the building itself had begun to anticipate a fire. They were there for what was supposed to be a routine post-performance press conference. But after the anonymous voice recording leaked and fans identified it as Namjoon, this wasn't a press junket anymore. It was a public trial, and they were both the witnesses and the judged. As they stood behind the curtain, waiting to be announced, Taehyung leaned closer to Jungkook. His voice was steady, but something in his eyes flickered with the storm he hadn't named yet. If they ask about June, Jungkook didn't let him finish. We stay honest. Taehyung held his gaze. Even if it costs him? Jungkook didn't blink. He made his decision. Now we make ours. A beat. Then the host's voice came over the speaker. Please welcome Jungkook and Taehyung. Applause. Polite but curious. The kind of clapping that isn't celebration, but surveillance. They stepped out into the light, sat at the long white table, bottles of water waiting. Mics positioned like traps. The flash of bulbs began immediately. Reporters with eyes like scalpels raised their hands. First question. How does it feel to be standing together after so much speculation? Taehyung leaned in first. It feels overdue, but right. Jungkook added. The speculation wasn't wrong. There was distance. There was silence. But there was also healing. Another hand. Was the conflict between you fabricated by the label? Jungkook didn't hesitate. It was manipulated, amplified, and, in some ways, enabled. Murmurs rippled through the press box. The moderators shifted in their seats. Taehyung remained perfectly still. Would you care to elaborate? Someone else asked. Taehyung's eyes flickered. Some decisions were made without our knowledge. Some people we trusted used our history as currency. The air changed. Everyone could feel what was coming. The next reporter didn't flinch. Are you referring to Namjoon? Silence. The name had finally landed. Jungkook inhaled slowly. His fingers tapped the water bottle once. Then he leaned toward the mic. Yes. Gasps. No more cameras, just shudders. Taehyung spoke before the next question could land. We've listened to the recording. We know what was said. We know who said it. Another voice in the back shouted, Do you intend to take action? Jungkook looked down for a long moment, then raised his head. We don't believe in erasure, he said slowly. What Namjoon did was wrong. It broke our trust. It hurt our work. But he is still part of what built us. Taehyung took over. We aren't defending him, but we're not destroying him either. We're choosing something harder. We're choosing to face him, not bury him. The room went quiet. Then another hand, a new voice. What would you say to the fans who feel betrayed? Jungkook didn't even pause. They deserve better, not just from him, from all of us, and from this industry. Then Taehyung leaned in again. You want the real answer? We're not here to play perfect. We're here to play real. The cameras went wild. The room trembled with the sound of keys clicking, messages being fired off to editors, live tweets blowing up the timeline. But none of it mattered anymore, because what came next wasn't scripted. The moderator whispered something into Jungkook's earpiece. He flinched, leaned back, His face paled. "What?" Taehyung asked, seeing the shift immediately. Jungkook didn't answer right away. He handed Taehyung the receiver. The message was simple. Namjoon just checked into a hospital for exhaustion. He left a note. "For both of you." By the time they reached the car, neither of them spoke. The noise outside blurred into a distant scream, like the city itself had gone hollow. Inside the vehicle, Taehyung unfolded the note. It was short, handwritten. "Hyung's tired, but I was tired of holding lies more. If I don't come back from this, don't defend me. Just do what I couldn't. Stay human." Jungkook looked out the window. His voice cracked. "I wanted to hate him." Taehyung folded the note, placed it back in his coat. "I still do, but I hate how much I understand him more." They didn't go home. They drove straight to the hospital. No entourage, no security. The nurse recognized them instantly, but didn't say a word. She pointed silently to the end of the hallway. They walked together. When they reached the door, Taehyung hesitated. Jungkook didn't. He pushed it open. Namjoon lay in the hospital bed. Wires on his wrist. A monitor, blinking slowly. He wasn't asleep. He was staring at the ceiling, like he was waiting for someone else. When he saw them, he didn't speak, didn't sit up, just stared. Taehyung spoke first. "We're not here to forgive you," Jungkook added. "We're not here to finish you either." Namjoon blinked slowly. "Then why are you here?" Jungkook stepped forward. "To return what you left us with." He pulled out the flash drive and placed it on the bedside table. "The truth. You don't get to vanish from it." Namjoon stared at it like it might explode. Taehyung leaned closer. "You don't get to decide who we become now. Only we do." Taehyung leaned closer. Namjoon closed his eyes. A tear slipped down his cheek. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I couldn't find another way." Jungkook's voice cracked. "Then you never trusted us." Namjoon didn't argue, didn't beg. He just nodded. And as they turned to leave, Taehyung paused at the door, glanced over his shoulder and said, "Don't die trying to fix what's already broken. Just live with it, like we did." They walked out together, again, but this time not in anger, not in revenge. Just in truth. The rain hit Seoul like an applause no one had asked for. Gray skies draped over the city, as if the heavens themselves had been mourning in secret, waiting until now to cry. Jungkook stood under the backstage awning, hands buried in the pockets of his hoodie, watching the staff rush to cover equipment. He hadn't said a word since they arrived at the final venue, the sold-out encore stage, the performance that would mark the end of a chapter neither of them had written, but had bled through. Inside, Taehyung sat alone in the dressing room. The hum of the fluorescent light above him echoed in his ears. On the vanity before him lay an envelope. Plain, white, unmarked except for one detail. His name, not Taehyung, not V, just Kim Taehyung, in Namjoon's handwriting. He hadn't opened it yet. He hadn't told Jungkook it existed. A knock at the door pulled him out of his paralysis. It wasn't Jungkook. It was Hobie. Hoseok entered quietly, closing the door behind him. He didn't smile. There was no usual ease in his gait, just something quiet, reverent. "I saw him," Hoseok said softly. "He's recovering." Taehyung didn't respond. "He's not asking to be forgiven," Hoseok continued. "But he wanted me to give you that." Taehyung gestured at the letter without touching it. "He already sent it." Hoseok sat down across from him. "You think it's an excuse?" "I don't want a confession," Taehyung said, voice low. "I want the part of me back that he stole." Hoseok's gaze didn't shift. "You don't get that back. But you get to choose what you become because of it." Taehyung finally opened the envelope. There was no preamble, no greeting, just 2 paragraphs. "I thought breaking you apart would keep the world from breaking you harder." That was a lie I told myself to sleep at night. The truth is, I broke you because I didn't know how to heal myself. Taehyung's hands trembled. The second paragraph read, "You were my favorite lyric, both of you. I only realized too late that I never deserved to write the chorus." He folded the letter and slid it into his inner jacket pocket. Then he stood. "Is Jungkook ready?" "He's been ready since you forgave him the first time," Hoseok said. "He just didn't know it." Taehyung nodded and walked out. Backstage, Jungkook had changed into his performance gear. Black, sleeveless, minimal. His eyes flicked up the moment Taehyung entered. Neither said anything for several beats. Finally, Jungkook spoke. They want us to cut the second bridge. Because of the lyric? Because of the truth in it? Taehyung didn't blink. We leave it in. Jungkook cracked the smallest smile. I hoped you'd say that. The arena roared outside, waves of screams pulsing through the walls like aftershocks. The two of them walked toward the lift platform in silence. Before they stepped on, Jungkook turned slightly. One last thing. Taehyung looked at him. I never said it, during all the chaos. But when I heard your vocals under my second verse for the first time, Jungkook's voice softened. I didn't freeze because I was angry. I froze because it reminded me what it felt like to be understood again. Taehyung didn't smile, but his eyes glistened. I didn't send it for forgiveness, he whispered. I sent it to see if you still heard me. Jungkook nodded. I always did. The lift began its slow rise. Lights dimmed. The intro of their most vulnerable song began to pulse through the air. But something unexpected happened. Before they sang, before the crowd even realized the performance had begun, a series of old home videos began playing on the big screen above the stage. Grainy clips. Unreleased footage. Namjoon, smiling. Behind the camera, narrating. Taehyung said this line wasn't good enough, but I told him it made the whole verse better. Jungkook redid this take 8 times. Not because I asked, but because he wanted it to feel honest. People think perfection is clean, but the best parts of them are messy. The crowd screamed, then hushed. And when the music began, Jungkook and Taehyung didn't lip sync. They sang. Live. No backup track. Every breath audible, every break in their voice. A confession. They didn't face the crowd at first. They faced each other. And when the bridge hit the line they were told to cut, they didn't whisper it. They shouted it. You broke the silence just by breathing divided by, I almost didn't notice you were gone. Taehyung's voice cracked. Jungkook led it. The crowd didn't cheer. They cried. When the final chorus came, the screen behind them went black. Then a single line appeared, written in Namjoon's handwriting. Let the world mishear the lyrics. You know what you meant. No bows. No choreography. Just 2 men standing, side by side, stripped of everything but truth. And when the final spotlight dimmed, and the arena fell into darkness, Jungkook turned. Taehyung was already looking at him. You okay? Jungkook asked. Taehyung nodded once. For the first time, yeah. They walked off the stage. No words. No applause needed. Just a silence that for once felt whole, not empty.